You wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing it. You don't feel like putting in the work. That's the problem, isn't it? Everyone's waiting to feel ready, waiting for motivation to strike like a lightning bolt, as if one day, out of nowhere, they'll wake up with a burning desire that never fades. But that's not how life works. That's not how success is built. Motivation is fleeting, unreliable, inconsistent. It's the fair weather friend that shows up when things are easy and disappears the moment resistance shows up. And if you rely on that, if you let your emotions dictate your actions, you will lose. What separates those who accomplish incredible things from those who don't isn't some magical constant drive. It's discipline. It's waking up and doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. It's pushing forward, not because you're in the mood, but because you've made a commitment to yourself, to your future, to the life you refuse to let slip away. People admire the ones who succeed, who create, who build, who push past limitations, but they don't see the reality behind it. They don't see the mornings when that person didn't want to get out of bed. They don't see the exhaustion, the doubt, the sheer force of will it took to take the next step when everything inside them screamed to stop. That's discipline. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, and it sure as hell isn't easy, but it's the only thing that works. Think about the person you could be if you just stopped waiting to feel like it. If you stopped negotiating with yourself, stopped making excuses, stopped postponing what you know you need to do. You say you want to change your life, you say you want to be more, do more, achieve more, but are you willing to force yourself to take action even when you don't want to? Because that's the real test. Anyone can work hard on a good day. Anyone can show up when they're feeling inspired. But the ones who win in life, they show up on the bad days. They show up when it's inconvenient, when they're tired, when they're frustrated. They don't wait for motivation. They command themselves to move. You must become the kind of person who expects resistance and moves forward anyway, because there will be days when everything inside you is screaming to take it easy, to skip today, to do it later. That's the moment you have to recognize the trick your mind is playing on you. Your feelings are trying to keep you comfortable, safe in the familiar. But nothing great is built in comfort. You must break through it, push past it, and act. People talk about wanting to be disciplined, but they treat it like some elusive personality trait, like you're either born with it or you're not. It's nonsense. Discipline is a skill, and just like any skill, you develop it through repetition, through consistency, through forcing yourself to do the hard things day after day until it becomes second nature, until it stops being a question of if you'll do it and becomes an automatic certainty. So how do you start? You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop entertaining the thought that you have a choice. Because if you give yourself an out, if you give yourself the option to quit, to skip, to take the easy way, eventually you will. But if you make a rule, if you decide right now that what you commit to, you follow through on no matter what, then everything changes. You take the emotion out of it. It's not about how you feel in the moment. It's about what you've already decided. That's what discipline really is. It's making a decision once and sticking to it every single day, regardless of how you feel. It's choosing to be the kind of person who acts instead of the kind of person who wants to act. It's understanding that your future self is entirely dependent on what you do today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. If you can master that, if you can stop chasing motivation and instead commit to disciplined action, there is nothing in this world that can stop you. You look at the big picture and it overwhelms you. You see where you want to be, the person you could become, the life you dream of living, and then you compare it to where you are now. And what happens? You freeze. You start thinking about how far away that goal is, how much work it will take, how uncertain the path looks, and before you even take the first step, you've already talked yourself out of it. This is where most people fail, not because they aren't capable, not because they aren't smart or driven, but because they get caught up in the enormity of the journey instead of focusing on what they can do right now. They stand at the bottom of the mountain staring at the peak, and all they see is an impossible climb. What they don't realize is that the only way to reach the top is one step at a time. It's not about massive leaps. It's not about transforming everything overnight. That's a fantasy. Real progress, sustainable progress happens through small, consistent actions. The person who wants to get in shape doesn't have to spend 5 hours in the gym on day one. They just need to show up. The writer who wants to finish a book doesn't have to write a masterpiece in a single sitting. They just need to put words on the page today. The entrepreneur who dreams of building a successful business doesn't have to have all the answers right now. They just need to take the next logical step forward. But here's where most people go wrong. They underestimate the power of small actions because they don't see instant results. They go to the gym for a week and they don't see a dramatic change in the mirror, so they give up. They write a few pages, but the book still feels miles away from being finished, so they stop. They take a few steps forward, but because they can't immediately see the payoff, they convince themselves it isn't working. This is the trap, the belief that progress should be visible right away, that if they don't see drastic change quickly, it means they're failing. But that's not how growth works. Think about a tree. You plant the seed, and for weeks, maybe even months, nothing seems to be happening. But beneath the soil, something is happening. Roots are taking hold. The foundation is being set. And eventually, that tree breaks through the surface. If you judge your progress too soon, you'll stop before you even give yourself a chance to succeed. What matters is that you keep showing up, that you trust the process, that you commit to the small, seemingly insignificant actions every single day because they do add up. One workout doesn't change your body, but 100 workouts, that's transformation. One chapter doesn't make a book, but 100 chapters, that's a finished masterpiece. One disciplined day doesn't change your life, but 1,000 disciplined days, that's an entirely new reality. And what's the alternative? Doing nothing? Staying stuck? Letting another year go by while you make the same excuses? If you do nothing, you already know where that leads. You've seen what happens when you put things off, when you avoid the discomfort of growth, when you keep waiting for the right time. The right time never comes. The perfect moment never arrives. What you have is now, and what you do with now determines everything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know exactly how the whole journey will unfold. You just need to do something today that moves you forward. One action, one decision, one step, and then another, and then another. Before you know it, you're miles ahead of the person you used to be, and the mountain that once seemed impossible to climb, you're already halfway up. If you commit to that, to the process, to the small steps, to the daily effort, there's no limit to where you can go. The only thing that can stop you is you. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, next week, when things settle down, when you have more time, more energy, more clarity, and the days turn into weeks, the weeks into months, and before you know it, another year has passed, and you're still in the same place telling yourself the same story. Excuses are seductive. They make you feel justified in your inaction. They convince you that waiting is the smart thing to do, that conditions need to be perfect before you begin. But that's a lie. And the more you buy into it, the further you drift from the life you could have built if you had just started. There is no perfect time. There never has been. The people who achieve great things don't wait for the stars to align. They start before they're ready. They start when it's inconvenient, when they're uncertain, when they don't have all the answers, because they understand something most people don't. Action creates clarity. You don't wait to feel ready before you take action. You take action first, and readiness follows. But most people never do this. Instead, they tell themselves stories. I don't have time. No, you just don't prioritize it. Look at how you spend your hours. Scrolling, distracting yourself, avoiding discomfort. I don't know where to start. Then start anywhere. The first step doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to happen. I'm too tired. Then take a small action, something manageable, something that builds momentum. I need to do more research first. No, you don't. You need to move. Excuses feel valid because they're wrapped in logic, but they're really just fear in disguise. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Because the truth is, once you start, you can't hide behind potential anymore. The moment you take action, you're exposed to the reality that this is on you. And that's terrifying for a lot of people. It's easier to delay, to tell yourself you could do it if you really tried, rather than face the discomfort of actual effort. But think about what happens if you don't change. If you keep waiting, keep making excuses, keep postponing what you know you need to do. Where does that leave you in 5 years, in 10? The life you want, the person you want to become. It all slips further away, not because you weren't capable, but because you chose not to act. And if that idea doesn't scare you, it should. You want a better life, a stronger mind, a greater sense of purpose, then you must take responsibility. No one is coming to do this for you. No one is going to wake you up, drag you to your desk, force you to train, push you past your own resistance. That's your job. And it starts the moment you stop entertaining excuses and just start. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Start small if you have to. Take one step, any step, but take it now. Because the moment you do, everything changes. The moment you take action, you break the cycle of hesitation. You shift from someone who talks about what they want to someone who actually moves toward it. And that shift, that's everything. So stop thinking, stop waiting, stop lying to yourself. You already know what needs to be done. The only question left is whether you'll do it. You want to grow, to improve, to become something more than you are today, but you don't want to be uncomfortable. That's the contradiction that keeps people trapped in mediocrity. They want the rewards, the strength, the success, the confidence, but they don't want to go through the process that forges those things. They want the result without the struggle. But it doesn't work that way. Growth demands discomfort. That's the price. Every time you push yourself beyond what's easy, beyond what's familiar, you become something more. But most people avoid that. They retreat at the first sign of difficulty. They feel resistance, fear, frustration, and they assume that means they should stop. But that's the exact moment they should keep going. Because discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, it's a sign that something is changing. Think about what happens when you lift weights. You're literally tearing your muscles apart. It's painful, uncomfortable, exhausting, but what happens next? The body rebuilds itself, stronger. It adapts, it grows. That's how all progress works. Mental growth, emotional growth, career growth, it all follows the same pattern. You put yourself under pressure, you endure the struggle, and you come out the other side stronger than before. But only if you stay in it, only if you don't run the moment things get hard. But that's exactly what most people do. They quit when it gets difficult. They tell themselves they're not cut out for it, that it's too much, that maybe they should try something easier. And so they stay exactly where they are, weak, uncertain, stuck. Not because they aren't capable, but because they weren't willing to endure the process. And that's tragic, because the people who succeed, who become unshakable, who build extraordinary lives, they aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who embraced the struggle, who felt the resistance and pushed through it anyway. You have to change your relationship with discomfort. You have to stop seeing it as an enemy and start seeing it as proof that you're growing. The fear, the doubt, the frustration, that's not a stop sign. That's the cost of transformation. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more you train yourself to handle it, the more powerful you become. Because once you stop running from discomfort, once you start leaning into it, you realize something incredible. It can't break you. It never could. So don't avoid the hard things. Don't look for shortcuts. Don't back down when the path gets steep, because that discomfort, that struggle, that's exactly what will make you You set a goal, you feel motivated, you tell yourself that this time it's different, this time you're going to follow through. But what happens? A few weeks go by, maybe even a few months, and suddenly you're right back where you started. The motivation fades, life gets in the way, and you start making excuses. And before you know it, that goal you were so excited about becomes just another thing you almost did. This is the cycle people get trapped in. They set goals, but they don't change their systems. They focus on where they want to be without building a process that actually gets them there. And that's the problem. Because a goal on its own is useless. It's just a wish, a hope, a vague idea of something you'd like to achieve. What really matters is what you do every single day. Think about it. A person who wants to get in shape can set the goal of losing 20 pounds. But if they don't build the habits that support that goal, if they don't create a system for training, for eating right, for staying consistent, then it doesn't matter how badly they want it, they won't get there. The goal might give them direction, but it's the system that determines the outcome. This applies to everything. You want to be successful in your career, then your focus shouldn't just be on some future title or financial target. It should be on the daily actions that move you forward, on mastering your craft, on consistently putting in the work. You want to develop self-discipline, then it's not about one big moment of willpower. It's about structuring your environment so that discipline becomes automatic. Because if you have to rely on motivation, you've already lost. The truth is, your life is the product of your systems. Whether you realize it or not, you already have systems in place. The way you spend your mornings, the way you react to stress, the way you handle failure. These patterns determine your results far more than any goal ever could. And if those systems are broken, if they lead to procrastination, inconsistency, and avoidance, then no amount of goal setting is going to fix that. So what do? You start by shifting your focus. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, you obsess over the process. You create daily structures that make success inevitable. You eliminate the need to make decisions every day by designing routines that move you forward automatically. You stop hoping that you'll wake up feeling inspired and instead build habits that make action non-negotiable. Because the reality is, the most successful people aren't the ones with the biggest goals. They're the ones with the strongest systems. They're the ones who show up every day, regardless of how they feel. The ones who don't rely on bursts of motivation, but on consistent effort, repeated over time. That's how progress happens. Not in giant leaps, but in small, disciplined actions carried out day after day until they become who you are. If you can internalize that, if you can stop chasing goals and start building systems, then there is no limit to what you can accomplish. Because once you have the right process in place, success is no longer a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. You wake up and the first thing you do sets the tone for the entire day. Maybe you hit snooze. Maybe you scroll mindlessly on your phone, delaying the inevitable. Maybe you tell yourself you'll get started soon, but soon turns into later, and later turns into nothing at all. And just like that, before the day has even properly begun, you've already lost. People think their lives are shaped by big moments, by breakthroughs, by dramatic transformations, by sudden bursts of inspiration. But that's not how it works. Your life isn't built in a single day, but it is built by what you do every single day, the way you approach today, the way you carry yourself, the decisions you make, the actions you take. That is what determines your future. And if you can't take control of today, if you can't master the next 24 hours, then how do you expect to master anything bigger? The mistake people make is that they live for tomorrow. They tell themselves that the real effort will start later, that the discipline, the commitment, the change they want to make, it's coming, just not yet. But that's a lie, because the only thing that actually exists is today. And if you keep wasting it, if you keep treating it like it doesn't matter, then you'll wake up years from now wondering why nothing ever changed. The way you win is simple. You dominate the day in front of you. You stop worrying about what's 5 years ahead or even 5 months ahead, and you focus on right now. What can you do today that moves you forward? What actions can you take now that put you in a stronger position than you were in yesterday? That's what matters. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to make today count. Because when you start stacking disciplined, focused, productive days on top of each other, that is what builds momentum. That is what creates change. That is how you take control of your life. One day at a time. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know exactly where you'll end up. You just need to win today. And if you can do that, if you can show up for yourself, push past excuses and take action no matter how small, then nothing can stop you. Because a person who wins the day every day is a person who wins at life. So here we are, no more waiting, no more excuses, no more telling yourself that one day you'll get serious, that eventually you'll make a change, because this is the moment, right now, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, not when you feel ready. You know what needs to be done. You know that discipline, not motivation, is what carries you forward. That small steps taken consistently lead to massive transformation. That excuses are the chains keeping you stuck. And the only way to break free is to take action now. You understand that discomfort isn't a signal to stop, it's proof that you're growing. That goals alone aren't enough. You need systems, habits, and a structure that makes success inevitable. And most importantly, you know that your life is shaped by what you do today, not by some distant future, not by some grand event, but by the decisions you make in this very moment. This is it. Your future is being built right now, whether you realize it or not. So what's it going to be? Another day wasted in hesitation, or the day everything changes? The choice is yours. It always has been.